Hello, one and all. Welcome to another episode of MMA Vision Analysis. This one, I'm here to talk about the recent news circulating regarding the departure or the reason for Francis Ngannou's UFC departure. But before I get started, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification to get all of this that is new from this channel. Your channel, the one and only MMA Vision Analysis. Despite the last loss to Anthony Joshua, I believe that takes nothing away from one of the hardest hitters on the planet, Francis Ngannou. Francis, when he was fighting in the UFC, was an absolute nightmare for the majority of fighters that stood in front of him, except for Stipe Miocic. There were plenty of reasons why Francis Ngannou was considered the best puncher on the planet. One, he was in that heavyweight division in the UFC, and some thought that the guy was simply unmatched. Obviously, Stipe Miocic had other ideas. Now, that takes nothing away from Francis Ngannou. He was absolutely a monster for anybody who stood in front of him in that octagon. You can just go ask guys like Jairzinho Rosenstruck. If you've never watched that knockout, I suggest that you take a moment to go and watch that fight and how violent and abruptly that fight ended. When you think of Francis Ngannou, you don't think of a guy or the first thought that comes into your mind is not someone who's afraid to face anybody inside of a octagon or a boxing ring. I believe his record shows that he's fought the best of the best, from Stipe Miocic to Tyson Fury in the world of boxing and Anthony Joshua last. So scared is something that he's just simply not. There's just a misrepresentation of Francis Ngannou. Francis is never scared, not in my eyes, of anybody. Recent article claims that the reason that Francis Ngannou left the UFC is because he was, quote-unquote, scared to face Jon Jones. I don't know how to feel about the statement. I believe there's many different ways of actually dissecting this statement. I'm not sure if Jon Jones was fighting at heavyweight when Francis Ngannou was in the UFC. It's been a while since last we've seen Ngannou in the UFC. But in my head, the number one reason the guy kind of left for boxing is for the payday. It's not because he's scared of anybody in particular. With all respect to Jon Jones here, the heavyweight champion of the world, arguably one of the best, if not the best, mixed martial artists of all time, I don't think Francis was necessarily scared of Jon Jones. I just think that there was more money to be made elsewhere, and he made the decision that's going to affect him more positively in terms of finances. I look at the fights with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua as harder fights to take, because that's a boxing fight, and he's never fought boxing before prior to those two fights. The fight against Tyson Fury, he was immaculate, but unfortunately against Anthony Joshua, he underestimated Anthony Joshua and fell victim to Anthony Joshua's power and skill. But Francis Ngannou being afraid, I cannot agree. I believe it's Dana White that made these statements. I'm not sure. I think it's Dana White that's made these statements, but I just don't think that's very, very accurate. I think this is a way of Dana White. This is probably Dana's attempt to bait Francis Ngannou back into the UFC. Because, you call a guy scared and then he wants to prove to you that he's not. Which clearly Francis Ngannou being scared, it's hard for me to imagine. If you made it this far, I appreciate you for sticking around. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe for more.